The police called Chicago's most feared Mafia boss and said, "She asked for you before the ambulance arrived." Adrian Kane had heard threats, confessions, and final words before, but nothing prepared him for Evelyn Hart's name coming through a detective's phone at midnight. Rain hammered Lower Wacker Drive. Her car was crushed against concrete, blood darkened her temple, and one hand refused to release a bag filled with secrets powerful enough to destroy City Hall. She had spent 18 months running from Adrian's world. Now, with killers closing in, he was the only man she trusted to keep her alive. This is not just a story about danger or forbidden love. It is about what happens when the man everyone fears becomes the one person who refuses to let you fall. Stay until the end. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. The ambulance doors shut between them, but Evelyn's final words stayed with Adrian all the way to the hospital. 8 years of stolen city money, companies connected to him. Rain streamed across the windshield as Caleb pushed the black sedan through midnight traffic. Chicago blurred beyond the glass in red lights, wet pavement, and the pale glow of buildings that seemed cleaner from a distance than they ever were up close. Adrian sat in the back seat with Evelyn's messenger bag beside him. He had not opened it. Detective Brooks had documented the contents at the crash site, and Mason had checked the bag for transmitters, explosives, and tracking devices. The leather was scratched along one side. A dark stain marked the strap where Evelyn's hand had bled onto it. Adrian stared at that stain longer than he intended. 18 months had passed since he last heard her voice. He remembered it too clearly. Not because she had been loud. Evelyn Hart had never needed volume. She asked questions with the calm persistence of someone placing a knife between ribs and waiting for the truth to flinch. Caleb glanced at him through the mirror. Northwestern called. "She is conscious." Adrian looked toward the rain. "Who has access to her floor?" "Mason has 2 men at the elevators. Hospital security is covering the stairs. Hospital security answers to hospital administrators." Caleb understood. "I will put our own men there." Quietly. "Yes." The city opened ahead of them, cold and sleepless. Adrian placed one hand on the messenger bag. A small card rested inside, folded over itself. "You were warned once. There will not be a third warning." He had read it 3 times at the crash site. The wording bothered him more than the threat. The collision had not been the first warning. That meant Evelyn had already hidden something from him. It also meant someone had been close enough to watch her fear grow. Northwestern Memorial Hospital stood bright against the rain, all glass steel and artificial calm. Adrian entered through the emergency wing with Caleb 2 steps behind him. People noticed. A nurse stopped talking in the middle of a sentence. A security guard lowered his hand from the radio at his shoulder. A man waiting beside a vending machine moved aside before Adrian reached him. Fear often arrived before recognition. Adrian had learned to use that. Detective Brooks waited near a row of plastic chairs, his coat still wet from the crash site. He held 2 paper cups of coffee, but looked as though he had forgotten both of them existed. "They moved her to a private room," Brooks said. "Concussion, bruised ribs, 12 stitches near the hairline. No internal bleeding." "Who has spoken to her?" "The doctor. 2 nurses." "Me. Anyone from your department?" "My lieutenant called." Adrian stopped. "What did he want?" Brooks studied him, weighing how much honesty the moment could survive. He wanted to know whether Miss Hart had made any statements about the motorcycle. "And what did you tell him, that she was disoriented? Was she no?" Rain tapped against the dark windows behind them. Brooks lowered his voice. "The order came down to classify the crash as reckless driving, unless we recover the motorcycle or identify the rider. The cameras failed for 11 minutes. "I know. The rider struck her car at an angle designed to force her toward the support column." "I know that too, and yet your department considers it reckless driving." Brooks looked toward the hallway leading to Evelyn's room. My department considers it whatever someone with enough influence tells them to consider it. Adrian held his gaze. Who made the call? I am working on it. You are already being told to stop. That does not mean I have stopped. For the first time, Adrian looked at him with something close to approval. Brooks handed one of the coffees to Caleb. I should warn you that she asked whether the bag was safe before she asked about her injuries. That sounds like her. Brooks raised an eyebrow. You know her well. No. The answer came too quickly. Adrian walked past him. Evelyn's room stood at the end of the hall behind a closed door. Mason waited outside, broad-shouldered and still his dark suit untouched by the disorder around him. No unusual activity, Mason said. Her phone is powered down. The battery was removed. Good. There is one more thing. Adrian waited. Mason lowered his voice. The card in the bag was printed on stock used by the city clerk's office. Adrian's expression did not change. Certain Owen is confirming it. Someone wanted the threat to point toward City Hall, or someone at City Hall had grown careless. Neither possibility was comforting. Adrian entered the room alone. The lights had been dimmed. A monitor pulsed beside the bed, casting a green reflection across the window. Evelyn lay beneath a white blanket with one arm resting across her ribs. Her dark hair had been cleaned of blood, though a bandage covered the stitches near her temple. There was swelling along her cheek and a purple mark at the base of her throat where the seatbelt had caught her. She opened her eyes when the door closed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The last time Adrian had seen her, she had been standing outside a bookstore in Lincoln Park with 3 novels in her arms. She had gone still when she recognized him, not because she feared what he might do, because she feared what his presence could bring back into her life. He had nodded once and walked on. He believed then that leaving her alone was a form of protection. Looking at her now, he understood how convenient that belief had been. You came twice, Evelyn said. Her voice was rough. Once would have been careless. That sounds like something you rehearsed in the elevator. I do not rehearse. She looked toward the empty chair beside the bed. Adrian pulled it closer and sat. Her eyes moved over his suit, his hands, his face, as though checking for damage. You were not followed. If I was someone is having a difficult night. A faint smile touched her mouth and disappeared just as quickly. Is the bag safe? Yes. The drive. Still where you hid it. She closed her eyes for a second. Relief moved through her body, slight but visible. Adrian leaned forward. Start at the beginning. Evelyn looked at him again. You still hate small talk. I hate wasted time. I remember. The words settled between them, carrying more history than either wanted to acknowledge. She shifted and pain crossed her face. Adrian's hand moved toward the call button. I am fine. You are not. I am conscious. That is close enough. He let his hand fall. Evelyn drew a careful breath. 3 weeks ago, I found a package outside my apartment. No return address. No postage. Someone had placed it against the door. What time I came home around 8. Anyone in the hallway. Number camera broken. Adrian watched her. Recently broken. The building manager said it had been out for 2 days. And you still opened the package. I used to be a reporter. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have. She looked toward the window where rain traced silver lines down the glass. There was a flash drive inside. No note, no explanation. Just the drive and a photocopy of an article I wrote 4 years ago about what redevelopment contracts on the south side. Holloway's district. Adrian knew the name. Grant Holloway had represented the district for 11 years. He spoke often about neighborhood investment, public safety, and jobs for local families. His campaign advertisements showed him touring schools and shaking hands with construction workers. His real talent was making stolen money look like civic progress. Evelyn continued. I had suspected his office was steering contracts toward certain developers, but I could never prove it. Every record stopped one step before the money reached him. What was on the drive contracts? Invoices, inspection reports, internal messages, photographs, bank records. How much? At least $38 million. Adrian said nothing. The number did not shock him. The structure did. Large theft required cooperation. Politicians, inspectors, developers, lawyers, and people willing to make witnesses disappear. Evelyn looked down at her hands. The money came from public projects, school repairs, transit improvements, flood control, affordable housing. Some projects were overbilled, some were never completed, others used cheaper materials while the city paid for better ones. She swallowed. There is a school in Inglewood where they build the city for reinforced support beams. The photographs show rusted steel that should have been replaced 10 years ago. A walkway collapsed there last winter. 6 people were injured, Adrian said. Her eyes lifted. You remember. I remember things that cost people blood. She studied him for a moment, then continued. The payments moved through Lakeshore Civic Partners. On paper, it is a consulting company. In reality, it collects city money and distributes it through shell corporations. Who owns it? Blake Mercer. Adrian knew him too. Mercer wore expensive suits, funded museums, and spoke at conferences about rebuilding forgotten neighborhoods. He had the polished smile of a man who believed charity could erase the source of his wealth. He is Holloway's developer, Evelyn said. Every major contract passes through one of his companies, and the files connect him to me. It was not a question. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the blanket. Not directly. Indirectly is often worse. There are transaction patterns in the records, holding companies consulting transfers, offshore movements. I recognized the structure from my research before the profile. Adrian's voice became quieter. What exactly did you recognize companies that orbit your legitimate businesses? Shipping firms, security contractors, construction suppliers. The money does not go into accounts under your control, at least not according to what I could verify. But the system looks like yours. Adrian sat back. For years, his organization had used layers of companies to move money between legal operations without exposing the criminal ones behind them. The structure had been created by Charles Dempsey, a financial advisor with a talent for making ownership disappear on paper. Dempsey had betrayed him 5 years earlier. Adrian had allowed him to leave Chicago alive. He had considered that mercy. Now he wondered whether it had been negligence. Did you find Dempsey's name? Adrian asked. Evelyn frowned. No. Who is he? Someone who may have taught the wrong people how to hide. She watched his face. There it was again, the old instinct that had made her dangerous. She saw the answer behind the answer. You know how the system was built. I know where it may have started. And you did not tell me about Dempsey when I researched you. You asked for a profile, not a confession. I asked whether people ever escaped your world. Adrian held her gaze. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they take pieces of it with them. The monitor beside her continued its steady rhythm. Evelyn looked away first. That is why I called you. I needed to know whether the files were real, and if they were real, I needed to know who would kill to keep them hidden. You called after the crash. I was going to call before. When? She did not answer. Adrian waited. Silence had always been useful with Evelyn. She did not fill it carelessly. She fought with it until truth became less painful than avoidance. 2 nights ago, she finally said someone left a photograph under my windshield wiper. What photograph? My sister leaving her apartment in Denver. The room seemed to grow colder. What is her name, Lauren? Address Adrian? Address. Evelyn's eyes hardened. You are not putting armed men outside her home without telling her why. I am not asking her permission to stay alive. She has a husband, a daughter. You cannot enter their lives like this. Someone already has. The words stopped her. Adrian lowered his voice. Give Mason the address. He will protect her without being seen. You make everything sound simple. Simple and easy are not the same. Evelyn looked toward the rain again. She is in Lakewood, near Denver. Adrian took out his phone and sent one message. Within minutes, people he trusted would begin watching Lauren Hart's house. Evelyn saw the message leave. You did not ask whether I agreed. No. That is exactly the kind of thing I wrote about you, and you were correct. Anger flickered across her face, but beneath it was relief. Adrian recognized both. He placed the phone on his knee. What was the first warning Evelyn's expression changed? He had reached the part she had hoped to avoid. The photograph. No. The card said there would not be a third warning. The photograph was the second. She closed her eyes. The monitor quickened slightly. Adrian waited. A week after the package arrived, I came home and found a bird nailed above my door. His body went still. The same method used 18 months earlier. The threat that had driven her away from journalism. The same kind he asked. Yes. Why did you not contact me? Because I had spent 18 months building a life that did not include you. You thought calling me would make it real. I thought calling you would pull me back into everything I had escaped. Adrian looked at the bandage near her temple. And did staying silent make it less real? No. Her answer was barely audible. The old article stood between them again. 18 months earlier, Evelyn had arrived at a diner carrying a small recorder and a legal pad. She had worn a blue coat damp from snow and ordered coffee she never drank. Adrian remembered the first question. Do you believe fear is the same as respect? Most journalists began with allegations. Evelyn began with philosophy. He had almost left. Then she asked what power had cost him. No one had ever asked as though the answer mattered. The profile appeared 3 weeks later. It described him as a man who had traded the possibility of trust for the certainty of control. He hated the sentence because it was accurate. He kept a printed copy in a locked drawer. You left journalism because of what happened after the article, he said. Evelyn nodded. My editor wanted me to take time away. I told myself it was temporary. Then I accepted a crisis communications job. You disliked it. I was good at it. That was not what I said. She gave a small, tired laugh that turned into a wince. I wrote statements for executives who had nothing to say. I taught companies how to sound sorry without admitting responsibility. The hours were predictable. The office had glass walls. No one followed me home. But you disliked it. Yes. Adrian leaned back. Why keep the drive? Because when I opened those files, I remembered who I was before fear made every decision for me. Her voice did not rise, but emotion sharpened every word. I saw photographs of that school. I saw invoices for repairs that never happened. I saw a transit worker lying beneath a platform the city claimed had been rebuilt. I could not pretend it was someone else's problem, so you investigated alone. I did not know who to trust. You trusted your former editor. I sent Samuel only part of it. Your sister. She knows enough to release the files if something happens to me. A dead man's switch. Every 24 hours I enter a code. If I miss it, the archive sends automatically. Adrian felt something close to pride. You planned well? Not well enough. You survived? Barely. Survival rarely looks elegant. She studied him. Is that how you justify it? Sometimes. The honesty quieted her. A nurse entered to check the monitor and adjust Evelyn's medication. She looked at Adrian with the careful disapproval of someone who knew he was not family, but understood that asking him to leave would be useless. After the nurse departed, Evelyn's eyes had grown heavier. Adrian stood. "You need sleep. What happens when I wake up? You leave the hospital and go where? A secure apartment in River North. I have work. You have a concussion. I cannot disappear. You already have." Her gaze sharpened. He continued. "Your employer will be told that you require medical leave. Your apartment is not safe. Your phone is compromised. Your routine belongs to whoever watched you leave work tonight. You are making decisions about my life. I am keeping enough of it intact for you to make decisions later. That sounds like control." "It is." The admission surprised her. Adrian stepped closer to the bed. "But protection is not ownership. You can leave whenever you choose. I will not lock a door. And if I walk out, I will follow you." A tired smile touched her lips. "That defeats the point. It preserves mine. Why are you doing this?" He had expected the question. He still did not like the answer. "Because the structure in those files may have come from my organization. That cannot be the only reason." No. The room was silent except for the rain and the monitor. Evelyn waited. Adrian looked at the bruises along her throat. "After your article, I learned about the threats." Her eyes changed. "You knew?" "Not immediately. And you did nothing. I had men watch your apartment for 3 weeks. I never saw them. You were not supposed to." "Then why did the threats continue?" "Because I withdrew them." The words landed hard. Adrian did not look away. "You saw me outside the bookstore 6 months later," she said. "Yes." "You walked past. I believed distance was safer." "For whom?" The question struck with the precision he remembered. Adrian answered without defense. "For me." Evelyn stared at him. "It was easier to call leaving you alone protection than admit I did not want to be responsible for what happened if I stayed near you." Her anger softened but did not disappear. "At least that is honest. I promised you honesty once. You promised never to make a promise you could not keep." "That too." She looked down at her hands. "Was any of the interview real?" "All of it. You lied." "I withheld." "That is a polished word for a lie." "Perhaps." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "After the recorder was turned off, you asked what decision I would change if I could." Evelyn's brow tightened. She remembered slowly. "You said there were people you should have protected. People who never chose my world but suffered because they stood too close to it." He looked back at her. "You were one of them. So this is guilt." "No. What is it then? Responsibility." The difference mattered to him even if she could not yet see it. Guilt remained seated beside the dead. Responsibility stood up and moved. Adrian opened the door. "I will be outside." "Adrian." He turned. Evelyn's eyes were already closing. "Thank you for coming." He gave one small nod. "You called." By morning, the rain had stopped. Chicago emerged beneath a low gray sky washed clean only from a distance. Evelyn signed her discharge papers at 8:30. She wore the same dark jeans and cream sweater from the night before. The sleeve had been torn at the wrist, and a nurse had cleaned the blood from the fabric as well as she could. Adrian waited near the elevators. Detective Brooks stood beside him holding a thin file. "My lieutenant closed the traffic report," Brooks said quietly. "Fast. Too fast. Did you find who called him?" "Not yet." Adrian looked toward Evelyn. "You will." Brooks followed his gaze. "She trusts you." "No. She trusts my consistency." That sounds like something a dangerous man says when he does not want to admit he cares. Adrian looked at him. Brooks lifted one hand. "Professional observation." Evelyn approached with Mason behind her carrying the messenger bag. "I need to go home," she said. "No, my laptop is there. You have one in the bag. The full archive is on the one at home. The drive only contains the original files. Adrian's jaw tightened. Evelyn noticed. You still do that. Do what your jaw moves when you are deciding whether to argue or issue an order. I do not have tells. Everyone has tells. Brooks looked between them and almost smiled. Adrian ignored him. 10 minutes, he said. We go in, collect the laptop, clothes, and anything necessary. We do not stay. 15, 10, 12. Adrian looked at Caleb. Bring the car. Evelyn's apartment stood in a brick building near Lincoln Square above a bakery that had already opened for the morning. The smell of coffee and warm bread reached the sidewalk. For a few seconds, the ordinary scene made the danger feel imagined. A woman walked a small white dog past the entrance. A delivery driver stacked boxes near the bakery door. Somewhere above them, a radio played softly through an open window. Then Evelyn reached the 3rd floor and stopped. Adrian saw the change in her body before he saw the door. What is it? The deadbolt. It was unlocked. Adrian moved her behind him. Mason drew his weapon and took the opposite side of the hallway. Caleb remained near the stairs. Adrian opened the door slowly. The apartment was silent. Books covered the floor. Couch cushions had been cut open. Kitchen drawers hung at crooked angles. The mattress had been pulled from the frame and sliced apart. Nothing valuable appeared to be missing. The destruction had a single purpose: fear. Mason cleared the bedroom, bathroom, and narrow fire escape. No one here. Evelyn entered. Her face went still. Adrian had seen people react to violence in many ways. Some cried, some shouted, some looked for someone to blame. Evelyn walked through the ruin without making a sound. She picked up a photograph frame from the floor. The glass was cracked. Inside was a picture of Evelyn beside a blonde woman and a little girl standing in front of snow-covered mountains. Across the glass, written in black ink, were 6 words. Portland was too far. Denver is not. Evelyn's hand began to shake. Adrian took the frame from her before it fell. They know where Lauren lives. Mason is already handling it. How I gave him the information last night. Her eyes flashed. You had no right? No. The answer stopped her. Adrian handed the photograph to Mason. Double the team in Denver. No local contractors. Use our people. Mason nodded and stepped into the hall to make the call. Evelyn looked around at the remains of her home. They did not even try to hide it. They wanted you to see. They wanted me to understand they could reach me. Adrian walked to the desk near the window. The drawers had been emptied, but the laptop charger remained plugged into the wall. Where is the computer? Evelyn stared at the empty desk. I left it here. Adrian turned. You said the full archive was on it. It was. A soft sound came from beneath a pile of papers near the couch. A phone vibrating. Everyone in the room went still. Mason returned and followed the sound. He moved the papers with the toe of his shoe. A black prepaid phone lay on the floor. Its screen glowed with an incoming call. No number. Adrian picked it up. Evelyn whispered, "Do not answer." He pressed the button. Silence filled the line. Then a distorted voice spoke. You should have stayed away from her, Kane. The call ended. Mason took the phone and sealed it inside an evidence pouch. Evelyn looked at Adrian. They expected you to come here. Yes. That means I was never the only target. No. He scanned the apartment again. The missing laptop, the staged destruction, the photograph, the phone. Every piece had been arranged to guide his attention. Someone wanted him angry. Someone wanted him visible. Mason crouched beside the door and examined the lock. No forced entry. They had a key, Evelyn asked. Mason shook his head. They used an electronic override. This building does not have electronic locks. The front entrance does. He stood and looked at Adrian. I checked the camera system before we came upstairs. It was restored 20 minutes ago. What did it capture? Two men entered at 4:12 this morning. Maintenance jackets. Caps low over their faces. Anything useful. They showed identification to the night manager. What kind? Mason's expression darkened. Chicago police. Evelyn looked from him to Adrian. The ordinary sounds from the bakery below continued through the broken quiet of the apartment. Coffee cups touched counters. A bell rang as someone entered. A child laughed on the sidewalk. Adrian looked at the message written across the cracked photograph. This was no longer a question of who wanted Evelyn silent. It was a question of how many powerful institutions were helping them. The discovery of police credentials changed the shape of the room. Until that moment, the attack on Evelyn could still be understood as the work of criminals protecting stolen money. The identification card suggested something worse. Someone had not merely bought muscle. Someone had purchased access to the people responsible for protecting the city. Adrian looked at Mason. Send the camera footage to Brooks. Only to him. Mason nodded. Evelyn stood in the center of her ruined apartment, one hand pressed against her injured ribs. You trust him? I trust that he is angry. That is not the same thing. No. It is often more useful. She looked toward the missing laptop. Every note she had written during the past 3 weeks had been stored on it. The original documents remained on the flash drive, but her timelines, questions, and connections were gone. They have everything I found. Not everything Adrian said. She looked at him. They do not have you. The words were simple. His voice made them sound like a fact no one in Chicago had the authority to challenge. For one dangerous second, Evelyn allowed herself to believe him. Then pain tightened around her ribs and pulled her back into the apartment. Mason returned from the hallway. The building manager confirms the men showed department identification. He did not record their names. Was he paid? Adrian asked. He says no. Do you believe him? I believe he was frightened enough not to look closely. Adrian turned to Evelyn. Pack what you can carry. My laptop is gone. Then we use another. My notes were on that machine. You know the story. That is not how reporting works. No, Adrian said. It is how survival works. Her eyes hardened. I am not going to sit in one of your apartments while your people decide what I am allowed to know. Adrian stepped closer. No one said you would. You were thinking it. I was thinking that you should not be standing in a room someone entered with police credentials. That does not answer me. It answers the part that matters now. Evelyn lowered her voice. The story matters now. So does your pulse. Do not reduce me to something you have to keep breathing. Something shifted in his expression. Not anger. Recognition. He had heard the same accusation in different words 18 months earlier when she asked whether protecting people gave him the right to control them. Adrian looked at the broken photograph on the floor. 10 minutes, he said. Take what you need. Then you work beside me, not behind me. Evelyn watched him carefully. That was almost a compromise. Do not become attached to it. She moved toward the bedroom. Caleb waited near the window while Mason spoke quietly into his phone. Adrian remained by the door studying the frame, the locks, and the places where the intruders had searched. Whoever arranged this knew Evelyn would call him. They had known enough about the article to understand the connection between them. They had predicted his response and prepared the apartment as a stage. The thought did not frighten him. It offended him. People made mistakes when they believed they understood him. Evelyn returned with a canvas bag over one shoulder. She had changed into a dark sweater and clean jeans. Her movements were careful, but she refused to show pain. I am ready. Adrian took the bag from her. I can carry it. I know. He carried it anyway. The drive to River North passed in silence. Evelyn sat beside Adrian in the back seat while Caleb navigated through morning traffic. The city looked ordinary. Office workers hurried beneath coats. Buses released clouds of exhaust at crowded corners. A man stood outside a coffee shop, arguing into his phone. Somewhere within those same blocks, people were deciding whether Evelyn lived. She watched the buildings slide past. What happens if the officers were real? Adrian looked at her. They were real. You know what I mean. If they were acting under orders from inside the department, Brooks has a larger problem than a stolen identification card, and if he is part of it, he would not have warned us about his lieutenant, unless he wanted us to believe he was helping. Adrian considered that. You have begun thinking like me. That does not feel like a compliment. It was not intended as one. She turned toward him. Do you suspect everyone? Yes. That sounds exhausting. It is efficient. No, it is lonely. The answer came so quietly that Caleb pretended not to hear it. Adrian looked out the window. Evelyn had always possessed the unpleasant ability to reach places people assumed were hidden. The safe apartment occupied the upper floors of a converted warehouse overlooking the river. Its entrance was discreet, hidden behind a private garage with no visible sign. Mason's team searched the vehicle before allowing it inside. Evelyn watched two men examine the wheel wells with mirrors. You live like this every day. Not every day. Only on the peaceful ones. Caleb smiled from the front seat. Adrian ignored him. Inside the apartment felt warmer than it had the night before. Morning light filled the wide windows, revealing pale wood floors, dark furniture, and shelves holding books that looked selected by a decorator. Evelyn placed her hand on one spine. Have you read any of these? No. I knew it. You sound pleased. I am pleased whenever something proves you are human. Adrian removed his jacket. That is a low standard. It is the safest kind. Mason entered carrying 2 new laptops and a sealed case containing the flash drive. Owen is on his way, he said. Brooks received the footage. Response: he wants to meet. Here, no. He says he will call from a clean line. Evelyn set her bag beside the couch. Who is Owen? My financial specialist, Adrian said. Accountant Owen finds that word insulting. What does he prefer? Necessary. 30 minutes later, Owen Price arrived carrying 3 phones, a leather folder, and a cardboard tray of coffee. He was younger than Evelyn expected, perhaps 35, with careful hair, tired eyes, and the expression of a man who considered most conversations an interruption. He set the coffee on the dining table. Which one of you is the journalist? Evelyn raised a hand. Owen looked at the bandage near her temple. You look worse than the financial records. Thank you. You are welcome. Adrian handed him the flash drive. Start with Lakeshore Civic Partners. I already did. You did not have the files. I have the city contract database and an unhealthy relationship with public records. Owen opened one of the laptops. Lines of corporate registrations filled the screen. Lakeshore Civic Partners was formed 9 years ago. Blake Mercer is listed as chairman, though ownership is divided among 4 holding companies. 3 are controlled by trusts. The 4th belongs to a law firm that does not appear to employ actual lawyers. Evelyn sat beside him. How much city money has passed through Lakeshore? In direct contracts, $72 million. She stared at him. I found 38. That was the amount redirected through obvious channels. The rest is hidden in consulting amendments, emergency repair authorizations, and material substitutions. Can you prove it? Owen glanced at Adrian. She asks better questions than you do. Answer her. Owen turned the screen toward Evelyn. I can prove the city paid them. I can prove money left their account shortly afterward. Proving that every payment was criminal requires matching dates, invoices, and recipients. Then we match them. Adrian placed a fresh cup of coffee near her hand. Evelyn looked at it. You remembered how I take it. You complained for 40 minutes during the interview because the diner only had powdered cream. I mentioned it once. You repeated yourself. I was making a point. You usually are. Owen watched them with open curiosity until Adrian looked at him. The curiosity disappeared. For the next 4 hours, the dining room became an improvised investigation center. Evelyn created columns for contracts, dates, amounts, project locations, and officials responsible for approval. Owen opened business records and banking references. Adrian supplied names that never appeared in public documents. The wall across from the table slowly filled with printed pages. Lakeshore Civic Partners received city funds. The company paid consulting fees to a series of corporations with respectable names and empty offices. Civic Renewal Strategies, Midwest Infrastructure Advisors, Calumet Project Management. Each company passed money into smaller accounts. Some ended in Delaware. Some moved through the Cayman Islands. Others returned to Chicago as property investments, campaign donations, or fees paid to firms connected to Councilman Grant Holloway. Evelyn pinned a photograph of Holloway at the center of the wall. He stood at a podium in front of a renovated school, smiling beside children in matching uniforms. Beneath the photograph, she placed an inspection report showing that the renovation had failed a structural review 6 months later. Adrian watched her face. "This one matters to you. They all matter. This one more." Evelyn picked up another page. The walkway collapsed during dismissal. A teacher broke her hip. A 10-year-old boy needed surgery, and Holloway attended the reopening ceremony. He called it proof that government could keep its promises. Adrian looked at the smiling photograph. Men like him do not lie because they fear the truth. They lie because they believe repetition makes ownership. Evelyn turned toward him. "That sounds personal. Everything about power is personal." Owen pointed to a row of transactions. "Here, every time Lakeshore receives an emergency payment, Civic Renewal Strategies transfers 7% to this account. The account belonged to a private foundation operated by Holloway's wife." Evelyn leaned closer. "What does the foundation do?" "According to its filings, youth leadership programs. And in reality, it purchased a condo in Miami." She wrote the amount on the wall. Adrian studied the movement of money. "Mercer is too careful to send payments directly to Holloway's family. Unless he believes no one will look," Owen said. "Mercer believes everyone can be bought." Evelyn looked at Adrian. "You know him. I have had dinner with him. Socially." "No dinner with Blake Mercer is social." "What did he want?" "Access to union labor on a waterfront project." "Did you help him?" "No. Why?" He spoke about workers as though they were equipment. Evelyn gave him a measured look. "You run a criminal organization, but poor manners offend you. Cruelty without purpose offends me. That is an interesting line to draw. It is still a line." Owen cleared his throat. "I hate to interrupt whatever this is, but Mercer has a second problem." He opened a photograph of a large man leaving a private club. Raymond Voss had silver hair, heavy shoulders, and the patient expression of someone who had outlived many enemies. 3 companies receiving Lakeshore money purchased materials through suppliers controlled by Voss. Owen said. "Concrete, steel, and demolition." Evelyn looked at Adrian. "The motorcycle came from his nephew's business." "Yes. So he is involved." "Perhaps. You do not believe it. I believe Voss would not leave his family's name attached to an attempted murder. Maybe he wanted you to know. Then he would call me." Owen looked at the image. "Voss has controlled construction unions since before I learned multiplication." "He controls more than unions," Adrian said. "Waste hauling, concrete, delivery site security, demolition. No major project moves through certain districts without his people collecting something." Evelyn folded her arms. "If Holloway and Mercer have been stealing from construction projects for 8 years, Voss either helped them or allowed it." "Yes. And if he allowed it, why attack me now? Because the files may expose more than he agreed to, or because someone wants us to think that." Adrian nodded. She was learning. The clean phone on the table rang. Mason answered first, listened, then handed it to Adrian. "Brooks." Adrian pressed the phone to his ear. Talk. Brooks sounded tired. The 2 identification cards belong to Officers Paul Danner and Eric Colson. Both are assigned to Records Administration. Convenient. They reported the cards missing this morning. After the footage reached you. Yes. Did either officer enter Evelyn's building? They deny it. Do you believe them? I believe they are afraid of the same person. Evelyn moved closer, listening. Brooks continued. My lieutenant ordered me to transfer the crash file to major accidents. Why? He says it involves department personnel. That is not how your department protects evidence. No, it is how someone takes it away from me. Adrian looked at Evelyn. Who pressured him? I traced the first call to the deputy superintendent's office. The deputy superintendent received a call from City Hall 12 minutes earlier. Whose office I do not know yet. Find out. Brooks let out a slow breath. You understand that I am not one of your men. My men do not require reminders. I could arrest you for obstruction. For what? Every sentence you speak. Adrian almost smiled. Call when you have a name. Brooks stopped him before he ended the call. There is something else. Traffic control records show the cameras on Lower Wacker were shut down through a maintenance request. Authorized by whom? A consulting company called Northline Public Safety. Owen began typing. Evelyn watched his screen fill with records. Northline Public Safety had received payments from Lakeshore Civic Partners. The same company had donated to Grant Holloway's campaign. The same company provided technology consulting to the police department. Owen sat back. There is your bridge. Evelyn looked at the wall. Holloway, Mercer, Lakeshore, Northline, Police Access. The network was no longer a collection of suspicious transactions. It was a machine. Every part protected the next. She stepped closer to the wall and drew lines between the names with a black marker. Adrian watched the concentration settle over her face. The bruises and hospital bandage had not weakened the person beneath them. They only made her determination more visible. You should rest, he said. No. You have been awake for 6 hours. I slept at the hospital. You lost consciousness after a collision. That does not count. Owen raised a finger. For the record, the doctor would disagree. Evelyn ignored him. I need to understand the structure before they move the money. They are already moving it, Owen said. He showed them a banking notification. 3 accounts associated with Lakeshore had transferred funds that morning, where Adrian asked. 1 to Delaware, 1 to a Cayman account. The 3rd went to a private bank in Zurich. They know the documents are exposed, Evelyn said. They know you survived. Adrian replied. Owen looked at the transactions. There may be a way to stop the domestic transfer, but the others are gone. Money is never gone, Adrian said. It changes names. Evelyn looked at him. Can you follow it? Owen can. Owen lifted his coffee. Necessary. By late afternoon, the windows had darkened into mirrors. The city lights reflected across the room, doubling every person and every page on the wall. Evelyn sat on the floor beside the coffee table reading through inspection reports. Her shoes had been abandoned near the couch. A blanket rested across her shoulders, though she had not noticed Adrian place it there. He stood near the window, speaking quietly with Caleb. Voss had requested a meeting, not through formal channels, not through an intermediary. He had sent a message to one of Caleb's cousins. That meant he wanted the invitation remembered, but not recorded. Caleb ended the call. He says the motorcycle is not his problem. Then why request a meeting? He says someone is using his name to start a war. Evelyn looked up. Maybe he is telling the truth. Adrian turned. You believe him? No. I believe he is worried. Caleb nodded. Tomorrow night. A closed restaurant in Cicero. Adrian looked at Mason. 2 cars outside. No one inside with me. I am going, Caleb said. That was not a request. I know. Adrian did not argue. Evelyn returned to the report in her hand. She tried to focus on the words, but the letters had begun to blur. Adrian noticed. Enough. I am reading. You are pretending to read. She lowered the page. My head hurts. You have a concussion. You enjoy being right. Not about this. He took the report from her hand. Evelyn looked up at him from the floor. For a moment, the room became quiet around them. Owen had moved to the kitchen. Mason stood near the entry. Caleb was on another call. Yet Evelyn felt as though she and Adrian occupied a smaller world inside the apartment. She saw the fatigue beneath his control. A faint shadow darkened his jaw. His tie had been removed hours earlier. The top button of his shirt was open. He had not slept since the phone call. Have you eaten? She asked. Yes. When? He did not answer. That means no. Adrian offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. He pulled her to her feet carefully, keeping his other hand near her waist without touching the injured ribs. She stood closer than either expected. The scent of rain still clung faintly to his coat, mixed with coffee and something darker. Evelyn's fingers remained around his hand. You do this for everyone under your protection. No. What part is different? Adrian looked at her. You ask too many questions. You knew that before you came. Yes. Then why come? His gaze dropped briefly to the bandage near her temple. Because you called. The answer should not have felt intimate. It did. Mason's voice broke the silence. Movement in the service elevator. Adrian released her immediately. The apartment changed. Caleb ended his call. Owen closed the laptop. Mason touched the radio at his collar. The building manager says no one authorized access. Adrian took Evelyn by the arm and moved her away from the windows. Stay behind me. She pulled free. I can walk. Then walk faster. The fire alarm began. A sharp mechanical bell cut through the apartment. Red lights flashed near the ceiling. Mason checked the security panel. No heat signal. No smoke. The elevator stopped. The hallway cameras went black. Adrian drew the weapon beneath his jacket. Evelyn stared at it. Until that moment, the danger had existed in photographs, files, and broken furniture. The gun made it immediate. Mason opened a concealed cabinet near the kitchen and handed Caleb another weapon. Owen moved toward a reinforced interior room. Adrian looked at Evelyn. Go with him. No. This is not a discussion. I am not hiding in a room without knowing what is happening. A muted impact sounded beyond the apartment door. Mason raised one hand. Everyone went silent. Another impact. Then the electronic lock flashed green. Someone had the access code. The door opened 3 inches. Mason drove his shoulder against it, forcing it shut as a suppressed shot struck the frame. Evelyn flinched. Adrian pulled her behind the stone wall beside the kitchen. Stay down. A second shot punched through the door. Mason fired once through the opening. Footsteps retreated into the hall. Caleb moved toward the service corridor. Adrian kept one hand against Evelyn's shoulder. The fire alarm continued screaming. She could feel his pulse through his fingers. It was steady. How did they get the code, she asked. Later. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the apartment. Emergency lighting flickered on near the floor. A figure appeared at the far end of the service corridor wearing a maintenance uniform. He raised a gun. Adrian moved before Evelyn saw the weapon clearly. He drove her behind the concrete wall as the shot struck the metal door where her head had been. Mason fired. The man disappeared. Caleb pursued him down the stairs. Adrian remained over Evelyn, his body shielding hers. For several seconds, neither moved. The alarm rang above them. She looked up. His face was close enough for her to see the small scar beneath his chin. "You are crushing me," she whispered. "You are alive." "My ribs disagree." He shifted immediately and helped her sit. Mason approached. One shooter ran toward the garage. "Caleb is following. There may be another. Get Owen into the secure room. He is already there." Evelyn looked at the bullet mark in the metal door. "They knew exactly where I was standing." Adrian followed her gaze. The photograph sent earlier had been taken through the safe apartment window. Someone had watched them long enough to map the room. The service elevator opened below. A struggle echoed from the garage. Adrian rose. "Stay with Mason." Evelyn stood too. "Adrian." He did not stop. She followed him. The garage smelled of oil, wet concrete, and burned powder. Caleb had forced one attacker against the hood of a parked car. The man wore a maintenance uniform, but his boots were tactical. Blood ran from his mouth. Adrian approached without hurry. "Who gave you the access code?" The man spat near his shoes. Adrian placed one hand around his throat and pressed him against the car. He did not shout. That made the violence worse. "Who gave you the code?" The man clawed at Adrian's wrist. Adrian increased the pressure. His expression remained calm. Evelyn stopped several feet away. This was the man from whispered reports and sealed court files. Not the controlled host from the diner. Not the quiet figure beside her hospital bed. This was what happened when Adrian Kane stopped asking. The attacker's face darkened. "Adrian." Evelyn said his name once. He looked at her. Something passed between them. A question. A boundary. A choice. Adrian released the man. The attacker collapsed against the hood, coughing. Caleb searched his pockets and found a second phone. Mason arrived and held it near the man's face. "Unlock it." The attacker laughed weakly. Adrian stepped closer again. The laughter stopped. The man entered the code. Mason opened the recent messages. One number had sent the building access code and a photograph of Evelyn standing at the dining table. The number belonged to a political consulting firm called Sloan Strategic Group. Evelyn stared at the screen. "Rebecca Sloan." Adrian looked at her. "You know the name. Everyone in Chicago knows the name." Deputy Mayor Rebecca Sloan had built her reputation on reform. She appeared beside school principals, neighborhood leaders, and union organizers. She spoke about transparency with the careful confidence of someone already preparing for a mayoral campaign. Owen emerged from the secure room with his laptop. Sloan Strategic Group is operated by her brother. "Payments?" Adrian asked. Owen searched. His expression changed. A company receiving money from Lakeshore transferred $400,000 into a private trust 3 months ago. Who controls the trust? The registration uses a family name. Evelyn stepped closer. "What name?" Owen turned the screen. Rebecca Sloan's mother had been born Rebecca Ward. The trust was registered as Ward Civic Holdings. Evelyn looked at the wall of names inside the apartment, then at the attacker struggling to breathe against the car. She built her career promising to expose Holloway. Adrian took the phone from Mason. Perhaps she meant to replace him. Evelyn's clean phone vibrated in her pocket. Everyone looked at her. She pulled it out. A message had arrived from an unknown number. There was no text at first. Only a photograph. It showed Evelyn and Adrian standing beside the investigation wall less than 20 minutes earlier. The image had been taken from the building across the river. A second message appeared beneath it. "Kane cannot protect you from her." Evelyn lifted her eyes toward the dark windows above the garage. Across the river, hundreds of windows reflected the city back at them. Any one of them could contain the person watching. The photograph remained on Evelyn's phone long after the screen dimmed. Kane cannot protect you from her. Across the river, hundreds of windows reflected the city back at them. Some held offices, some held apartments, some were dark. Any one of them could contain a camera. Any one of them could hide the person who had watched Evelyn move through a room she had believed was secure. Adrian took the phone from her hand. His expression did not change, but the air around him did. "Which building?" he asked. Mason studied the angle of the photograph. "East side of the river, somewhere between the 18th and 24th floors. Send 2 teams. They may already be gone. Then find what they left." Mason nodded and began giving orders. Caleb kept the captured attacker against the car while Owen searched the man's phone. The garage lights flickered beneath the false fire alarm. Red emergency lamps washed the concrete in pulses, making every face appear briefly wounded. Evelyn looked at the message again. "Who is she?" Adrian glanced at Rebecca Sloane's name on Owen's screen. "We do not know yet. The message says you cannot protect me from her. The message wants you afraid of Sloane. That does not mean it is wrong." "No." His answer was too calm. Evelyn watched him hand the phone to Mason. "You believe she sent the attacker. I believe someone wanted us to find a connection to her. That is not the same thing." "No. Then why does it feel as though you already decided?" Adrian turned toward the captive man. "Because whoever sent him expected to leave evidence behind." The attacker lifted his head and gave a faint smile through bloodied teeth. Adrian saw it. So did Evelyn. The man had not failed. He had completed the part of the job that mattered. He had delivered a name. Rebecca Sloane. Mason read another message from the phone. Payment came through an account registered to a security subcontractor. The company worked on Sloane's last campaign. Owen looked up from his laptop. It also received money from Blake Mercer. Evelyn pressed one hand against her ribs. "So Sloane is connected to Mercer. Or Mercer wants her connected," Adrian said. The fire alarm stopped. Silence dropped into the garage so suddenly that Evelyn could hear water dripping from the undercarriage of a nearby car. Caleb looked at the attacker. "What do we do with him?" Adrian answered without looking away from Evelyn. "Brooks gets him." The attacker's smile vanished. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "That is generous. It is useful." Adrian stepped closer to the man. "You entered a private residence with a weapon. You fired at a woman under police protection. Detective Brooks will be very interested in how you obtained department access." The attacker's face tightened. Adrian lowered his voice. "If you are fortunate, the men who paid you will believe the police are the most dangerous part of your night." For the first time, fear appeared. Adrian walked away. Evelyn followed him toward the elevator. "You are giving him to the police?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because someone wants me to respond like a criminal. You are a criminal." He pressed the elevator button. "That does not mean I must be predictable." The doors opened. They stepped inside together. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Evelyn looked at the dried blood on Adrian's knuckles. "You almost killed him." "No. You had your hand around his throat. I knew exactly how long he could breathe." "That is supposed to reassure me." "No." The elevator began to rise. Evelyn stared at the doors. "When I said your name, you stopped." Adrian looked at her reflection in the polished metal. "You were standing too close. That is not why." "No." She waited. He did not give her anything else. The elevator reached the apartment. Inside, Owen returned to the financial records while Mason's teams moved across the river. Caleb remained below with the captive until Brooks arrived. Evelyn walked to the windows. The city still looked beautiful from this height. That felt like an insult. Adrian closed the blinds one panel at a time. "Raymond Voss wants to meet tomorrow night," he said. Evelyn turned. You are going. Yes. So am I. No. You said I would work beside you. You are not walking into a meeting with Raymond Voss. You think he may be connected to the motorcycle. I know what I think. Then tell me. Adrian faced her. Voss has survived for 40 years because he rarely leaves fingerprints. The motorcycle was registered through his nephew's company. That is too obvious, so someone framed him. Possibly. And you plan to ask him. I plan to listen while he decides how much truth benefits him. Evelyn folded her arms. I should be there. He would use you to measure me. He already knows you came when I called. That is not the same as letting him watch me protect you. The words hung between them. Evelyn's voice softened. Protect me or control me. Adrian looked toward the wall of evidence. With Voss, the difference can get you killed. The next evening, Cicero was wrapped in freezing fog. The closed steakhouse stood on a quiet corner between a shuttered pharmacy and a church with its lights turned off. Snow from the previous week had hardened into gray ridges along the curb. Caleb parked across the street. The restaurant sign was dark. No staff waited inside. No customers sat at the tables. Only one lamp burned in the back room. Evelyn remained at the safe apartment with Mason and Owen. She had argued until Adrian left, but he had not changed his decision. Caleb watched him from the driver's seat. She is going to be angry. She already is. Does that bother you? Yes. Caleb smiled faintly. You answered quickly. Adrian opened the car door. Stay outside. You know I will not. I know. They crossed the street. Inside, Raymond Voss sat alone beneath the hanging lamp. He wore a charcoal suit and no tie. A glass of red wine rested near one hand. His silver hair was combed back, his expression almost pleasant. Adrian took the chair opposite him. Caleb stood near the door. Voss looked at him. You brought Ortiz. He brought himself. Loyal men are either a blessing or an early grave. That depends on the man. Voss lifted his wine. I heard the reporter survived. Adrian said nothing. Voss smiled. That silence answers more than words. Adrian placed a photograph of the motorcycle on the table. Your nephew owns the rental company. My nephew owns several things because I was foolish enough to make his mother a promise. The motorcycle forced Evelyn Hart into a concrete column. So I heard. Who rented it? Voss looked at the photograph for less than a second. A shell company connected to Blake Mercer. You knew. I learned after your people found the bike, and you did not call. I wanted to see what you would do. Adrian leaned back. What did you learn? That age has not made you patient. You asked for this meeting, because someone is using my name to start a war. Voss took a slow drink. Mercer rented the motorcycle through a company tied to my nephew. The payment passed through 2 accounts before it reached him. Amateur work except for one detail. Which detail? The account that authorized the transfer belonged to a political consulting firm, Sloan Strategic Group. Voss's eyes sharpened. So you found that too. Why would Rebecca Sloan help Mercer? Maybe she did not. Voss set down the glass. Rebecca has spent years collecting secrets. She keeps them the way other people keep money. She does not expose corruption when she finds it. She stores it until the right person becomes inconvenient. Does she have something on you? Voss smiled without warmth. Everyone has something on everyone. That is not an answer. It is the only one you get. Adrian studied him. What did Mercer promise you? Nothing. Holloway access. To what public contracts? Demolition. Waste. Concrete. So you allowed the scheme. I allowed business. People were injured. Voss looked at him. Do not come into my room pretending your hands are cleaner than mine. Adrian did not move. I did not. The silence between them grew heavy. Voss leaned forward. Mercer and Holloway became greedy. They stopped paying for cooperation and began paying for silence. Men become dangerous when they think silence is cheaper. Did you order the crash? No. Did any of your men know? Would they tell you? They know what happens if they do not. Adrian believed that part. Voss slid a small card across the table. On it was the name of a law firm and a time. Rebecca Sloan met with my attorney 2 weeks ago. Why? She offered protection. From what? From the story your journalist is building. Adrian looked at the card. What did she want in return? Records connecting Mercer to Holloway, names of police officers, enough evidence to destroy both men, and you refused. I asked what she planned to do with me once they were gone. Voss smiled again. She did not answer. Adrian placed the card inside his coat. Voss watched him. You think the reporter chose you because she trusts you. She chose me because she knew I would come. That is more dangerous. Adrian stood. Voss remained seated. One more thing, Voss said. Adrian waited. Rebecca knew about the woman before the crash. The room seemed to narrow. How? She asked my attorney whether Evelyn Hart still had contact with you when, 3 days before the motorcycle appeared. Caleb's posture changed near the door. Adrian's voice stayed level. Why did your attorney not tell me? Because he works for me. Voss lifted his glass again. Every alliance has a price, Kane. Rebecca's problem is that she prefers other people to pay hers. Adrian left without another word. When he returned to River North, Evelyn was sitting at the dining table with Samuel Ford on a secure video call. Samuel's gray hair looked untidy even through the poor connection. Books and old newspapers filled the office behind him. He stopped speaking when Adrian entered. Evelyn looked up. How did it go? Adrian removed his coat. Voss denies the attack. And you believe him. I believe he does not want war. Samuel leaned closer to the screen. Is that Adrian Kane? Adrian looked at him. Unfortunately. Samuel studied him for a moment. I edited Evelyn's profile of you. I remember. You threatened to sue. I asked whether your lawyers had read it. That sounded like a threat. It was a question. Evelyn rubbed her temple. Both of you stop. Samuel turned back to her. I reviewed the documents you sent. The contracts are real. The inspection reports match city records. But we cannot publish from leaked files alone. We have transaction dates, Evelyn said. We need independent confirmation. Owen is tracing the accounts. Owen works for him. Samuel pointed toward Adrian. That gives every defense attorney a reason to claim the evidence was shaped by organized crime. Adrian moved closer. The evidence exists whether you like the person who found it. The public does not read raw evidence. They read what we publish. Samuel's voice remained steady. If this story carries Kane's fingerprints, Holloway will call it a Mafia attack on City Hall. Mercer will say a criminal organization manufactured the records. Sloan will present herself as the only trustworthy reformer. Evelyn looked at the wall. He is right. Adrian said nothing. Samuel continued. We verify every contract ourselves. We speak to workers, inspectors, school officials, anyone who saw the projects fail. We request responses from every person named. That gives them time to move money, Evelyn said. They are already moving it. And witnesses. Yes. Samuel leaned toward the camera. But if we publish one fact we cannot defend, they will use it to bury everything else. Evelyn nodded slowly. I will send you the original files. Not from that network. Owen can create a clean transfer. Samuel glanced at Adrian again. I want nothing routed through Kane's servers. Adrian answered before Evelyn could. Reasonable. Samuel looked surprised. The call ended after they agreed on a verification process. Evelyn closed the laptop. You did not argue. He is correct. You hate being told that. I hate being told that by people who enjoy it. She looked toward the door. What did Voss give you? Adrian placed the attorney's card on the table. Evelyn read it. He met with Sloan 2 weeks ago. Why? She wanted evidence against Holloway and Mercer. That supports the idea that she is investigating them. Voss says she offered protection in exchange. That sounds like leverage. It is. Evelyn looked at Adrian. What else? He did not answer quickly enough. She saw it. What else did he say? Sloan asked whether you still had contact with me. When 3 days before the crash. Evelyn went still. The apartment seemed to hold its breath. She knew. She knew your name was connected to mine. She expected me to call. Possibly. No. Evelyn stood. She chose me. Adrian watched the realization move across her face. Not fear this time. Anger. She sent the files because of the old article, Evelyn said. She knew that if I was threatened, I might turn to you, or someone wanted us to think that. You keep saying that whenever the answer becomes inconvenient, because convenient answers get people killed. Her eyes flashed. Then give me the inconvenient one. Adrian looked at Owen. Owen closed his laptop. I found something else. Evelyn turned toward him. Owen placed a printed record on the table. The laundering structure in the files matches a system created by Charles Dempsey. Adrian's jaw tightened. Evelyn noticed. Who is Charles Dempsey? Owen looked at Adrian. Adrian answered. He worked for me. When 5 years ago? What happened? He stole from the organization. And I found him. The room grew quiet. Evelyn held his gaze. What did you do? I forced him out of Chicago. You let him live? Yes. She looked down at the documents. He sold the system. That is what it appears. To Mercer and Holloway. Yes. Evelyn stepped away from the table. You knew this structure came from your world. I suspected. You knew enough to ask about Dempsey in the hospital. Yes. And you did not tell me. I did not know whether it mattered. She stared at him. It mattered to me. Now we have proof. That is not the point. Her voice sharpened. You stood beside my hospital bed and talked about honesty. You said responsibility meant deciding what happened next. Then you decided which part of the truth I was allowed to hear. Adrian did not defend himself. That made her angrier. You protected Dempsey once she said why he had information that could damage people I was responsible for. So you let him leave? Yes. And the system followed him? Yes. The money stolen from those schools moved through something built under your roof? Yes. Each answer landed like another closed door. Evelyn grabbed her coat from the chair. Adrian stepped between her and the exit. Move. No. You said I could leave. I said I would not lock the door. You are standing in front of it. Because you are angry and injured. I am angry because you lied. I withheld information. She laughed once without humor. That is the same polished word you used 18 months ago. Adrian's voice became quieter. You are right. The admission stopped her. He stepped aside. The path to the door opened. Evelyn looked at it, then at him. You are letting me go. I am giving you the choice I should have given you from the beginning. She walked past him. Her hand reached the elevator button. The doors opened. Cold air from the hallway moved through the apartment. Adrian stood several feet behind her. I should have told you, he said. Evelyn turned. There was no authority in his voice now. No command, no careful performance. only truth. I believed exile ended the problem. He continued. It did not. I believed distance protected you after the article. It did not. I believed withholding Dempsey's name kept you focused on the threat in front of you. He looked at the evidence covering the walls. It only made me another man deciding how much truth you could survive. Evelyn's fingers tightened around her coat. Why should I trust you now? You should not. The answer hurt. Adrian held her gaze. Trust is not something I can demand because I came when you called. I can only stop giving you reasons to regret it. The elevator doors began to close. Evelyn placed one hand between them. They opened again. She remained there for several seconds. Then she stepped back into the apartment. Tell me everything about Dempsey. Adrian nodded. No relief showed on his face, but she saw it in the way his shoulders loosened. They sat at the dining table. For the next hour, Adrian told her the truth. Charles Dempsey had joined the Kane organization as a financial advisor after the death of Adrian's father. He designed layers of legitimate companies that allowed money to move without exposing criminal revenue. He was brilliant, arrogant, and convinced that no one understood his value. 5 years earlier, Dempsey began taking small amounts from accounts he believed no one watched. Adrian noticed. When confronted, Dempsey offered names, records, and secrets in exchange for his life. Adrian accepted. Dempsey left Chicago and disappeared. Evelyn listened without interrupting. Why did you spare him? She finally asked. Because killing him would have started an investigation. That is the practical answer. It is the true answer, not the complete one. Adrian looked at her. You always do that. Do what refused the first truth because you can see the second one behind it. She waited. Adrian looked down at his hands. Dempsey had a son. Evelyn said nothing. The boy was 11. Adrian continued. His mother was dead. If I killed Dempsey, the child would have had no one. So you let him go. Yes. Do you regret it? I regret believing mercy required no responsibility afterward. The answer softened something in her. Not the anger, the certainty of it. Later, Mason returned from the building across the river. The surveillance room had been empty. Whoever used it had removed the camera, wiped the surfaces, and cut the building footage. They left one thing behind. A printed photograph of Rebecca Sloan entering City Hall. On the back were 3 words. She started this. Evelyn placed it beside the anonymous messages. Too perfect, she said. Adrian looked at her. Yes. Someone wants us to focus on Sloan. Yes. Which means she is either the center of everything or a distraction from the person who is. Adrian gave the smallest nod. You are beginning to enjoy this. No, you are. I enjoy being right. That sounds familiar. For the first time since the argument, Evelyn smiled. It was brief, but real. Near midnight, Owen left to coordinate with Samuel's newsroom. Mason moved to the lower floor to review security. The apartment became quiet. Evelyn found Adrian in the kitchen rinsing blood from his knuckles. A cut had opened across the back of his hand. You should clean that properly. It is clean. It is bleeding into the sink. That is not the same thing. She took the cloth from him. Sit. Adrian looked at her. You are giving orders now. I am experimenting. He sat. Evelyn opened the medical kit and pressed antiseptic against the cut. His hand tightened once. That hurt, she said. No. You have tells. I do not. Your fingers moved. They objected to your technique. She wrapped gauze around his hand. The kitchen light cast a soft circle around them. For the first time, Adrian seemed less like the most feared man in Chicago and more like someone who had been awake too long. Evelyn kept one hand around his wrist. You stopped in the garage when I said your name. You have mentioned that. You still have not answered. Adrian looked at her fingers against his skin. You were asking me to stop. You obeyed. I listened. Is there a difference? Yes. She raised her eyes. Why, Adrian's voice lowered. Because 18 months ago you asked questions no one else was willing to ask. Then you left, and I discovered silence did not make your voice disappear. Evelyn did not move. He continued. I remembered the way you looked at me as though there might still be a man beneath everything people feared. There is. You cannot know that. I know you stopped. Their faces were close now. Adrian lifted his uninjured hand, but he did not touch her. The restraint carried more weight than contact. Evelyn's breath caught. Then Mason entered. Samuel found 2 inspectors willing to speak. The moment broke. Adrian lowered his hand. Evelyn stepped back. Mason's eyes moved between them, but his expression remained professional. One of the inspectors has copies of reports that were altered after submission. The other says Holloway's office pressured him to approve Mercer's concrete supplier. Get statements on record, Evelyn said. Samuel is arranging it. By morning, the investigation wall had doubled. Samuel's newsroom confirmed the school repairs. A transit mechanic supplied photographs of equipment that had been billed as replaced but never removed. Brooks identified the City Hall call that pressured his lieutenant. It came from an administrative office reporting to Deputy Mayor Rebecca Sloan. Owen traced the trust connected to Sloan. The money had entered it through Lakeshore Civic Partners, but none had been withdrawn. The account remained untouched. That could support her claim of an undercover operation, Evelyn said. Or she is waiting, Adrian replied. Samuel joined through secure video. We have enough to write, he said. Not enough to publish. Evelyn looked at the wall. Then we force someone to respond. Adrian understood before she finished. We send Sloan the draft. Samuel frowned. That gives her everything. No, Evelyn said. It gives her what we want her to see. They created 2 versions. The first described the corruption network but did not identify Sloan's trust. The second included the trust the City Hall phone call and her meeting with Voss's attorney. Only Sloan would receive the second version. If those details reached Holloway, Mercer, or Voss, they would know the leak came through her. Evelyn spent 12 hours writing. The article began with the cracked school walkway, not the stolen money. It described children walking beneath steel the city had paid to replace. It followed the contracts from City Hall to Lakeshore Civic Partners, then through shell companies and political accounts. It named Holloway. It named Mercer. It described police access disabled cameras and falsified inspections. It raised direct questions about Sloan. By the time Evelyn finished, the article was 23 pages long. Samuel read the final paragraph in silence. This will destroy people. Evelyn looked at the photographs on the wall. They destroyed themselves. Adrian stood behind her. Send it. Evelyn opened a new message addressed to Rebecca Sloan. The request for comment was formal. The deadline was not. You have 48 hours to respond on the record. After that, the article and supporting documents will be distributed to 3 news organizations and federal prosecutors. Evelyn attached the version containing Sloan's trust. Her finger hovered above the key. Adrian said nothing. This decision belonged to her. She pressed send. For 6 hours, there was no response. Night settled over Chicago. The river turned black beneath the windows. At 11:17, Evelyn's clean phone rang. She answered on speaker. A woman's voice filled the room. Controlled, educated, familiar from television. Miss Hart, you have documents you do not understand. Evelyn looked at Adrian. Then help me understand them on the record. Rebecca Sloan was silent for a moment. No recorders, no police. Midnight tomorrow at the Chicago Cultural Center. You already used police. Another pause. I did not order what happened to you. Then tell me who did. Bring Adrian Kane. Adrian's expression hardened. Evelyn kept her voice steady. How do you know he is here? Sloan ended the call. The screen went dark. Outside, Chicago continued glowing, as though nothing had changed. Adrian looked toward the windows. She did not ask whether I was involved. Evelyn placed the phone on the table. She already knew. Rebecca Sloan had not asked whether Adrian was with Evelyn. She already knew. The call ended, but her certainty remained inside the apartment like another unseen camera. Evelyn stared at the dark phone while Adrian studied the windows overlooking the river. Someone had photographed them from the building across the water. Someone had entered the safe house with a valid security code. Now, Chicago's deputy mayor had chosen a city building for a midnight meeting and treated Adrian's presence as part of the arrangement. She chose the cultural center, Evelyn said. Too many entrances, Adrian replied. Too many cameras controlled by the city. She said no police. She controls people inside the department. You think it is a trap? I think every invitation from a politician is a trap. Some are simply decorated better. Evelyn looked toward the investigation wall. Grant Holloway smiled beside children in one photograph. Blake Mercer stood before a tower under construction in another. Rebecca Sloan appeared at a podium with one hand raised, promising to clean corruption from City Hall. Each of them had created a public life from carefully selected truths. I am going, Evelyn said. Adrian turned from the window. That was never in question. You are not going to argue. I intend to argue about everything except whether you attend a meeting you forced her to arrange. She arranged it. You sent the article. That almost sounded like praise. It was an observation. Mason entered carrying a tablet. The cultural center closes at 7. Sloan is attending a private fundraiser until 11:30. Her office requested access through the north entrance until 1. For whom Adrian asked. No name listed. Cameras city controlled inside. Private businesses cover the surrounding streets. Adrian looked at Evelyn. We enter separately. No, it gives us more options. It gives her a chance to isolate one of us. Something changed in his expression at the word us. Evelyn noticed. We enter together, she said. Adrian held her gaze. Together. The following night, Chicago was sharp with cold. Thin ice covered the edges of the sidewalks. Yellow light reflected from the wet streets. The cultural center rose above Washington Street, its tall windows glowing against the darkness. The last guests from Sloan's fundraiser were leaving when Adrian's sedan stopped near the north entrance. Evelyn wore a dark wool coat over black trousers. Her hair covered the stitches near her temple, but the bruise along her cheek remained visible. Adrian sat beside her in a charcoal suit. His injured hand rested on one knee beneath a black glove. Caleb checked the mirrors. 2 cars near the north side. Another near Michigan Avenue. Mason Adrian asked. Across the street. Evelyn glanced at him. You brought an army. I brought 4 people. For you, that may be an army. No. An army asks fewer questions. Caleb stopped at the curb. Adrian stepped out first and surveyed the street before offering Evelyn his hand. She accepted it. His fingers closed around hers for only a moment, but the contact carried a quiet promise. Inside the building had gone still. Empty reception tables stood beneath marble columns. Abandoned glasses reflected the gold ceiling lights. A security guard waited near the entrance. Deputy Mayor Sloan is upstairs, he said. He did not ask for identification. Evelyn and Adrian climbed the grand staircase side by side. Their footsteps echoed through the open hall. At the top, an assistant directed them toward Preston Bradley Hall. Rebecca Sloan stood alone beneath the glass dome. She wore a dark green dress beneath a long coat. Her hair was pinned neatly behind her head. She held no papers and showed no sign of fear. Miss Hart. Deputy Mayor. Sloane looked at Adrian. Mr. Kane, you asked for me. I expected you. That is becoming a problem. Evelyn stopped several feet away. You said I do not understand the documents. You understand what they show, Sloane replied. You do not understand why they were given to you. Then explain it. Sloane glanced toward the doors. We have 20 minutes before my staff begins asking questions. You invited a journalist and a Mafia boss into a city building, Evelyn said. Your staff already has questions. I told them I was meeting a donor. Adrian looked around the empty room. You should have chosen a more expensive coat. Sloane ignored him. The person who copied the records is Tyler Mercer, Blake Mercer's nephew. Evelyn remembered Tyler's name from the financial files. He was 26 and listed as an approving officer on several suspicious payments. He signed the transfers, she said. His uncle used his account credentials. Tyler believed he was approving routine consulting expenses. An internal audit exposed an invoice connected to a project that did not exist. And he came to you. Yes. Why I had spent 3 years investigating Holloway. Secretly, Adrian said. I wanted arrests, not headlines. You wanted control, Evelyn replied. I wanted a case that could survive court. Then why send the records to me? Sloane paused. It was not long. It was long enough. Evelyn stepped closer. You chose me. I selected someone with relevant experience and public credibility. You chose a former reporter who had not published an investigation in 18 months. You had investigated Holloway's redevelopment network, so had other journalists. They had not written a profile of Adrian Kane. The room seemed to narrow. You expected me to call him, Evelyn said. I believed you might. You wanted his organization involved. Law enforcement cannot move through certain financial networks as quickly as he can. Adrian took one measured step forward. You used her to reach me. I used an existing connection. You placed stolen evidence outside her home. I gave her the opportunity to expose a criminal network. You placed her inside a war she did not know existed. Sloane's expression remained controlled. I did not order the crash. That is not what I said. You are assigning responsibility. I am stating it. A faint tension appeared around Sloane's eyes. I knew Holloway had protection inside the police department. I did not know he had someone inside my office. Evelyn stared at her. He discovered Tyler. Yes. When 2 days after the package reached you. And you did not warn me. I tried. The dead bird was not from you. No. The photograph of my sister, no. Then what did you do? Sloane hesitated. I had someone follow you. Cold moved beneath Evelyn's skin. You watched me. I needed to know whether Holloway's people had identified you. You knew they had. Not until the crash. Adrian's voice cut through the hall. You gambled that I would keep her alive. Sloane faced him. I gambled that your concern for her was stronger than your desire to remain uninvolved. Evelyn looked at Adrian. His face revealed nothing. You had access to records and people outside the reach of a lawful investigation, Sloane continued. I needed Holloway and Mercer to panic. Powerful men expose themselves when they believe control is slipping. You needed chaos, Adrian said. I needed movement, and if Evelyn died, I did not believe you would allow that. The words echoed beneath the dome. Adrian moved closer. You did not trust me. You calculated me. Yes. Sloane's honesty was as cold as his. That is what people like us do. Evelyn stepped between them. Do not include me in that. Sloane turned toward her. You sent a demand for comment with a 48-hour deadline. You forced this meeting because you wanted a reaction. I asked questions. You threatened an investigation that took 3 years to build. Then explain why your private trust received $400,000 from Lakeshore Civic Partners. Sloane's mouth tightened. The account is monitored. By whom? Federal investigators. Give me names. I cannot. Give me records. They are sealed. You are asking me to trust a story you refuse to prove. I am asking you to understand that publishing now could destroy evidence and send suspects into hiding. They are already moving money. Money is not the case. People are. Evelyn heard Samuel's warnings in Sloane's words. Documents needed witnesses. Evidence needed context. Truth had to survive the defense built against it. Sloane reached slowly inside her coat. Adrian's hand moved toward his jacket. She removed a small envelope. It contains Tyler's last known location. Evelyn took it. Inside was a photograph of Tyler entering a brownstone and a sheet of paper with an address. You hid him, Adrian said. I placed him in protective housing, without law enforcement. I did not know which officers could be trusted. When did he disappear 30 hours ago? Who took him, I do not know. That answer is becoming convenient. Sloane looked at Adrian. The people who took him moved through a world I cannot enter. You mean Mercer? I mean the men Mercer pays. Evelyn folded the address. What do you want from us? Delay the article for 60 days. Give the task force time to recover Tyler and arrest the full network. Who leads this task force, I cannot tell you. What agency, I cannot tell you. Do they know you used me to draw Adrian into the case? Silence answered. Sloane softened her voice. Miss Hart, I understand your anger. No. You understand how my anger can be used. I understand that you were hurt. You accepted that possibility before you chose me. I have watched Holloway survive for years because no one was willing to take the necessary risk. You did not take the risk, Evelyn said. You assigned it. For the first time, Sloane's composure weakened. Adrian touched Evelyn lightly at the arm. We are finished. Sloane looked at him. If she publishes, Tyler may die. If Tyler dies, Adrian said it will be because you hid him inside a plan built on secrets. They walked toward the doors. Sloane called after them. Raymond Voss is not your enemy in this. Adrian stopped. Blake Mercer used his nephew's company to provoke a war between you. I know. Someone inside Voss's organization still helped him. Adrian looked back. Everyone has someone who can be bought. Sloane's gaze moved to Evelyn. Even you. Adrian's expression darkened. Evelyn answered first. The difference is that I pay the cost of my own choices. They left her standing beneath the dome. Outside, Mason waited near the corner while Caleb brought the sedan forward. Evelyn handed Mason the address. Tyler's last secure location. Before Mason could respond, Evelyn's clean phone vibrated. A photograph appeared. Rebecca Sloane stood beside a gray-haired man outside a private law office. Adrian recognized him. Voss's attorney. A message followed. She did not protect Tyler. She traded him. Then coordinates appeared on the screen. Mason entered them into his device. Warehouse near the South Branch. Whoever sent this knew where Sloane kept him, Evelyn said. And knows we just met her, Mason replied. Adrian looked toward the street. They are still watching. He told Mason to send a team to the warehouse. I am coming, Evelyn said. No. Tyler is the source. He may be dead. Then I need to know. You need to stay alive. I am tired of people using that sentence to end every conversation. A warehouse is not a newsroom. No, it is where the witness is. It may be a trap. Then stop treating me like bait and start treating me like your partner. The wind pulled loose strands of hair across her face. This began because Sloane decided what I was allowed to know. Holloway tried to frighten me into silence. Mercer stole my laptop. You kept Dempsey from me because you believed you knew what I could handle. Adrian's jaw tightened. Every person involved believes controlling me means controlling the truth. Evelyn continued. I am done allowing it. For several seconds, Adrian said nothing. Then he opened the trunk and removed a protective vest. Evelyn took it. You stay close to Mason. I stay where I can see what is happening. If I tell you to run, you run. If I see a better choice, I take it. His jaw moved again. You have a tell, she said. This is not the time. It never is. They drove south in 2 vehicles. The river narrowed between factories and abandoned storage yards. Snow rested in dirty ridges against chain fences. The coordinates led to an old distribution warehouse near an unused rail line. One light burned above the loading dock. A dark sport utility vehicle waited outside with its engine running. They are preparing to leave, Mason said. Adrian checked Evelyn's vest and tightened the strap near her shoulder. Stay behind me. You already said that. I am saying it again. You repeat yourself when you are worried. I repeat myself because you do not listen. Mason opened a side door. Inside, the air smelled of oil dust and wet wood. Voices carried from the far side of the building. Tyler Mercer sat tied to a metal chair beneath a hanging work light. His face was bruised and blood stained his collar. Several boxes stood beside him. Miles Carter Holloway's chief of staff paced nearby while 2 armed men carried records toward the waiting vehicle. Evelyn noticed a metal trash bin filled with documents. A fuel can stood beside it. They are going to burn everything, she whispered. Carter struck Tyler across the face. Adrian moved from cover. Miles. The warehouse became silent. Carter turned. Color left his face. Adrian Kane, you have something that does not belong to you. The armed men raised their weapons. Mason shot the hanging light. Darkness swallowed the floor. Gunfire erupted. Adrian pushed Evelyn behind a concrete support as bullets struck metal shelves. Caleb fired from near the loading doors. One attacker fell while the other moved behind the boxes. Carter dragged Tyler's chair toward the rear exit. He is moving. Tyler, Evelyn said. Stay here. Adrian crossed toward Carter. A flame rose from the trash bin. Fuel spread across the floor. The fire moved toward the boxes. Evelyn saw a red fire control lever on the wall 20 feet away. Mason was pinned behind a forklift. Adrian had reached Tyler, but Carter's gunfire forced him back. Evelyn ran. A bullet struck the concrete near her foot. She crawled beneath a loading platform, then pushed toward the wall. Smoke climbed toward the ceiling. She reached the lever and pulled. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then alarms screamed. Water poured from the sprinkler system. The fire collapsed beneath the sudden rain. Visibility disappeared. Adrian moved through the water and knocked the gun from Carter's hand. They hit the floor. Tyler's chair tipped onto its side. Evelyn rushed to him. His eyes widened. You are Evelyn Hart. How do you know me? I sent the files. She pulled at the ropes around his wrists. A shot struck the chair. Adrian covered her with his body and fired toward the remaining attacker. The man fled toward the loading dock where Detective Brooks entered with 2 trusted officers. Police, drop the weapon. The attacker surrendered. Caleb stepped from behind a truck with one hand pressed against his shoulder. Blood ran between his fingers. Mason reached him. You are hit. Grazed. That is what people say when they refuse to sit down. Adrian turned toward Evelyn. Water ran through his hair and along his face. Blood darkened the shirt near his ribs. You were shot, Evelyn said. Grazed? Caleb gave a strained laugh. He stole my answer. Brooks placed Carter in handcuffs while Mason cut Tyler free. The young man tried to stand, but his knees failed. Evelyn caught one arm while Adrian supported the other. Tyler looked toward the wet boxes. The records. They are safe, Evelyn said. His eyes closed with relief. They moved Tyler and the evidence to a private medical facility. A doctor treated Caleb's shoulder and closed the wound along Adrian's side. The bullet had cut through skin without entering deeply. Evelyn stood beside the examination table. "You can sit," Adrian said. "I am fine. You are shaking." She looked at her hands. They were trembling. Adrian waited until the doctor left. "You crossed an open floor. The records were burning. A bullet missed you by inches." "It missed." "That is not an argument." "No, it is a fact." She stepped closer. "You covered me." "Yes." "You were hit because of it." "Yes." "Why?" His eyes held hers. "Because there was no version of that moment where I watched you fall." Her anger disappeared. "That sounds like a promise. It is one. You never make promises you cannot keep. I cannot promise safety. I cannot promise my world will become clean enough to fit inside yours." He moved closer. "But I can promise that I will never use your fear to make your choices for you." Evelyn touched his face. Adrian placed one hand behind her neck and kissed her. The first contact was careful. Then she pulled him closer. The kiss carried fear, relief, anger, and 18 months of distance neither had managed to forget. When they separated, his forehead rested against hers. "You should not have crossed that floor. You are repeating yourself. I intend to continue." Mason knocked once and entered. "Tyler is ready." Tyler sat inside a conference room with Brooks Owen and Samuel on a secure video call. Evelyn took the chair opposite him. "Tell us why you sent the files." "My uncle used my credentials to approve payments," Tyler said. "I discovered it during an audit. Then I found messages between Blake and Holloway. Why contact Sloan? She said she had been investigating Holloway for years. She helped me collect more records and chose me to release them." Tyler nodded. "She knew Adrian would become involved if you were threatened. Who ordered the crash, Holloway?" "Carter hired a security contractor that used former officers. They wanted it to look connected to Raymond Voss." "The apartment?" "Same contractor." "The safe house?" "My uncle ordered that after he learned Adrian had the documents." "Who gave them the access code?" "Someone inside Sloan's office. Holloway had an informant there." Evelyn looked at Brooks. "And the police credentials?" "Holloway paid officers through Northline Public Safety," Tyler said. "Did Sloan trade you to Voss? No. She wanted records from his attorney proving Mercer used Voss's companies. So the anonymous message lied. Not completely." Tyler tightened both hands around his cup. "Sloan knew her plan had exposed you. She kept going because the pressure was working." Samuel spoke through the screen. "We have enough to publish. You also have enough to damage an active case," Brooks said. "If we wait, Sloan controls the public story," Samuel replied. "If you publish, suspects run." Owen turned his laptop around. "Mercer's private plane filed a flight plan 20 minutes ago." "Destination?" Adrian asked. "Toronto." Evelyn opened the final article. She added Tyler's testimony. Holloway's connection to the security contractor and Sloan's decision to use her as leverage. She made clear that no evidence showed Sloan ordered the attacks. She did not make Sloan the hero. She did not make her the mastermind. She wrote only what the evidence supported. When the article was complete, Evelyn looked at Adrian. "You are not going to tell me what to do?" "No." "That may be the most frightening thing you have said. This is your story." Evelyn looked at Tyler, then at the photographs of the damaged school and transit platform. "No. It belongs to the people who paid for something they never received." Adrian nodded. "Then give it back to them." Evelyn sent the evidence to Samuel's newspaper, a national investigative outlet, a Chicago television station, and federal prosecutors. Owen activated a public archive with a 6-hour timer. A message appeared on the screen. "Files sent. Public release in 6 hours." Phones began ringing almost immediately. Samuel's newsroom called. Brooks received messages from federal investigators. Owen's banking alerts filled the screen. Adrian's phone lit with calls from men who rarely allowed themselves to sound afraid. Evelyn looked at him. "What are they saying?" He silenced the phone. "The city just discovered it cannot keep this quiet." Outside, the first pale light of morning spread across Lake Michigan. Evelyn stood beside Adrian, their shoulders touching. Neither moved away. For a few quiet seconds, Evelyn and Adrian stood before the windows, while the first light spread across Lake Michigan. Below them, Chicago woke without knowing that its most protected secrets were already moving through newsrooms, federal offices, and private servers. Then Samuel called. "We are live." Evelyn turned toward the nearest screen. The article appeared beneath a photograph of a damaged school corridor. There were no portraits of Holloway Mercer or Sloan at the top of the page, no marble offices, no campaign banners, only cracked concrete, exposed steel, and a strip of yellow caution tape across a hallway where children should have been safe. The headline named an 8-year corruption network built from stolen public money, false inspections, political pressure, compromised officers, and private companies designed to make responsibility disappear. For a moment, no one in the room spoke. Tyler sat with a blanket around his shoulders, staring at the screen as though the words belonged to someone else. Brooks read the opening paragraph twice. Owen watched the visitor count rise so quickly that the numbers seemed to blur. Samuel's voice came through the speaker. The national outlet published at the same time. "The television station is preparing a live report." Evelyn looked at the photographs embedded throughout the article. A damaged transit platform, a flooded basement beneath an affordable housing building, a school staircase blocked by temporary boards 3 years after the city paid for repairs. The money had always been easy to hide because numbers did not cry limp or send children home early. Now every number had a face beside it. Adrian's phone vibrated again, then Mason's, then Caleb's. The city was beginning to understand. At 6:15, Grant Holloway canceled his morning appearance at a community center. At 6:23, Blake Mercer's attorneys issued a statement calling the article a coordinated attack based on stolen and manipulated documents. At 6:32, city inspectors contacted Samuel's newsroom and offered to testify. By 7, parents had gathered outside the damaged school in Englewood. They held printed copies of inspection reports and photographs of cracked walls. A woman stood before a television camera with her young son beside her. "My child walked under that ceiling every day," she said. "They knew it was dangerous, and they smiled at us anyway." Evelyn watched from the conference room. Her coffee remained untouched. Adrian stood several feet behind her, speaking quietly with Mason. "What is Mercer doing?" he asked. "His plane is still on the ground." Federal agents reached the airport before boarding. Holloway, inside City Hall. 3 exits are covered. Voss. No movement from his house. Adrian looked toward the article on the screen. Voss will wait until he knows which direction the fire is moving. Brooks ended a call and reached for his coat. "Federal prosecutors have approved emergency warrants. They want Tyler's full statement." Tyler looked up. "Am I under arrest?" "No," Brooks said. "But you are a witness who signed fraudulent transfers. I did not know what they were." "Then tell them everything before your uncle tells them something different." Tyler nodded, though fear had tightened his face. Evelyn moved closer. "You kept copies when you could have deleted them." "I almost did. But you did not." Tyler looked at the photograph of the broken school walkway. "I saw that report. My uncle called it a paperwork problem. It was not paperwork. I know that now." Brooks placed a hand on his shoulder. "Come with me." Before leaving, he stopped beside Evelyn. "You understand that publication makes protection harder. It also makes silence impossible." He looked at Adrian. "That answer sounds like him." "No," Adrian said. "Mine would have been shorter." Brooks almost smiled. Then he escorted Tyler out. At 7:40, television cameras crowded the entrance to City Hall. Holloway appeared briefly behind the glass doors, surrounded by aides and attorneys. He wore the same dark blue suit he had worn during his last campaign announcement. His tie was crooked. For the first time, he looked like a man who had dressed in a hurry. Reporters shouted questions through the doors. Did you accept money from Lakeshore Civic Partners? Did your office pressure city inspectors? Did you order an attack on Evelyn Hart? Holloway turned away. Federal agents entered through a side door 6 minutes later. The arrest happened in a service corridor behind the council chamber. One reporter captured the moment through a narrow window. Holloway's hands were pulled behind him while an agent searched his coat. He did not look powerful. He looked confused, as though the city had broken an agreement by holding him accountable. Blake Mercer reached his private airport shortly before 8. His plane had been fueled. 2 suitcases were already on board. Federal agents stopped his vehicle before it reached the hangar. Mercer stepped out with his attorney and demanded to see a warrant. An agent handed it to him. Mercer read the first page, then looked toward the cameras gathering beyond the security fence. His face changed. Not because he feared prison, because he understood that people were watching. Owen turned the volume lower on the television. 3 Lakeshore accounts have been frozen. Only 3. Evelyn asked. 3 domestic accounts. The foreign transfers will take longer. Can Mercer still reach them? Not without exposing whoever helps him. Adrian looked at Owen. Follow every attempt. Owen nodded. The apartment had become a command center again, but the atmosphere had changed. They were no longer searching for the story. They were watching the story force people to move. Shortly after 9, Rebecca Sloan announced a press conference. She stood inside City Hall behind a row of microphones. American and Chicago flags framed her on both sides. Her expression was grave but controlled. For 3 years, my office has worked quietly with witnesses and investigators to uncover a criminal network inside city government. Evelyn watched without blinking. Sloan described Holloway's corruption, Mercer's companies, and the pressure placed on public employees. She praised Tyler's courage. She did not mention that she had placed the files outside Evelyn's apartment. She did not mention the surveillance. She did not mention using Adrian's concern as part of her strategy. She is taking ownership, Mason said. She is taking the clean part, Evelyn replied. Sloan continued. I regret that certain documents were released before law enforcement could complete its work. However, the public deserves accountability, and I remain committed to helping investigators bring every responsible person to justice. Adrian stood beside Evelyn. She makes manipulation sound like service. She has had practice. Samuel called before the press conference ended. We are publishing the second piece. Evelyn looked at the screen. The follow-up article appeared minutes later. It detailed Sloan's secret contact with Tyler, the monitored trust, the use of Evelyn as an unofficial route to Adrian, and her failure to warn Evelyn after learning Holloway had discovered the leak. The article stated clearly that there was no evidence Sloan ordered the crash or the safe house attack. It also made clear that she had accepted those risks as useful pressure. The press conference changed while it was still happening. A reporter near the front raised her phone. Deputy Mayor Sloan, did you select Evelyn Hart because of her relationship with Adrian Kane? Sloan's expression froze. Another reporter spoke. Did your office know she was under surveillance before the crash? Why was Tyler Mercer hidden outside official witness protection? Did you authorize contact with Raymond Voss's attorney? Sloan tried to return to her prepared remarks. No one allowed her. By noon, the mayor announced an independent ethics review. At 2, Sloan resigned from her position pending the investigation. Her final statement was released through an attorney. Necessary actions are rarely comfortable. Evelyn read the sentence twice. She still believes the result excuses the method. Adrian stood near the window. People who control the story long enough begin to confuse control with innocence. She looked at him. That sounds like experience. It is. The room quieted as afternoon light moved across the floor. Caleb had returned from treatment with his arm in a sling. He sat near the kitchen, irritated by every instruction to rest. Mason handed Adrian a sealed folder. Federal investigators requested records involving Charles Dempsey. Evelyn looked up. Adrian opened the folder. Inside was a formal request for company registrations, transaction records, and communications connected to Dempsey's financial structures. Owen leaned back in his chair. They will not stop with Mercer. No, Adrian said. Mason lowered his voice. We should review the older files before anyone else sees them. Review them. And if something creates exposure, Adrian looked at the pages. Preserve it. Mason went still. Owen stopped typing. Caleb watched from across the room. No one in Adrian's organization needed an explanation of what the order meant. Records had been destroyed for less. Mason spoke carefully. Some of those files may be used against us. If Dempsey built the system while working for me, then we answer what can be answered. You may be giving them a path into the organization. Adrian closed the folder. I gave Dempsey a path out and called it mercy. I will not make the same mistake and call it protection. Mason looked toward Evelyn, then back at Adrian. This could cost us. Adrian's voice remained calm. So did silence. Mason took the folder. He did not agree. He obeyed. Evelyn waited until the others moved away. You know, cooperation will not make them overlook everything else. I am not asking them to. You could lose businesses. Yes. People. Yes. Freedom. Adrian met her eyes. Perhaps. The answer frightened her more than confidence would have. You sound prepared for that. I am prepared for consequences. That is different from wanting them. She looked down at his bandaged hand. Why now? Because you wrote that I had traded trust for control. That article was 18 months ago. It took time to become inconvenient enough to understand. A tired smile touched her mouth. That may be the closest thing to admitting I was right. Do not become greedy. 3 days later, Detective Brooks visited Evelyn at Samuel's newsroom. She had returned to the building for the first time since leaving journalism. The lobby smelled the same: coffee dust, old paper, and overheated equipment. Reporters moved between desks while televisions played updates from City Hall. Evelyn paused near the elevator, remembering the night she packed her belongings into a cardboard box and told everyone she needed a break. She had not believed she would return. Samuel met her outside the investigative desk. Her old desk was still there, though someone else had used it during her absence. A new notebook waited beside the keyboard. Samuel pushed his glasses higher. The position is yours. Evelyn looked at the busy room. I have conditions. You have been back for 30 seconds. Secure communication from the beginning of every investigation. Legal review before publication week. Evidence stored in more than one location. Samuel nodded. Reasonable. No source known to only one editor. Also reasonable. And no one publishes an accusation we cannot prove, no matter how useful it is politically. Samuel studied her. That sounds less like a condition and more like a warning. It is both. He offered his hand. Welcome back. Evelyn looked at it. Then she took it. Brooks waited near the conference rooms, holding a thin file. I thought you might want this. He handed it to her. The crash report had been reclassified. Attempted murder. The motorcycle rider had been arrested outside Milwaukee. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he identified Carter Mercer's security contractor and the officers who supplied access credentials. Evelyn read the final page. So that part is over. Brooks looked through the glass wall toward Adrian, who waited near the elevators. Cases involving men like him are never over. Adrian heard him. Careful, detective. That almost sounded personal. It is becoming professional. Worse. Brooks looked at Evelyn. He kept you alive. Yes, that does not make him safe. I know. Adrian's gaze remained on her. Brooks followed it. You really do. Several weeks passed. Holloway remained in federal custody after a judge denied bail. Mercer was charged with fraud, conspiracy, witness intimidation, and attempted obstruction. Several police officials were suspended. 2 resigned before investigators reached their offices. Raymond Voss avoided immediate arrest by supplying records that proved Mercer had used his nephew's company without authorization. No one mistook the cooperation for morality. Voss was protecting what remained of his empire. Tyler entered federal witness protection after giving testimony to a grand jury. The damaged school closed for emergency repairs. For the first time, the city paid inspectors who had no political connection to the contractors. Evelyn returned to work. Adrian kept his distance. At first, she told herself it was necessary. Federal investigators watched him. Reporters followed his cars. His businesses appeared in every discussion of Dempsey's financial system. Then, 1 week became 2. He sent no messages beyond brief answers when she contacted him about evidence. He did not arrive at the newsroom. He did not ask her to return to the safe apartment. His absence became more noticeable than his presence had ever been. One evening, Evelyn went to the Kane Club. The man at the entrance recognized her and opened the door without asking her name. She found Adrian on the rooftop. Winter had settled over Chicago. The river below reflected white light from the towers. Wind moved through his dark coat as he stood beside the stone railing. He did not turn when she approached. "You disappeared," Evelyn said. "I gave you space. You gave me silence. I thought you wanted a life that did not require my protection. I wanted a life I chose." Adrian turned. "That is what I was trying to give you." "That sounds noble." It was unpleasant. She almost smiled. Then she stepped closer. "You are still who you are." "Yes. There are things you may never tell me." "Yes. I will not become someone you hide in a safe house whenever danger appears. I would not ask you to. And when my work points toward your world again." The wind moved between them. Adrian's face remained calm, but she saw the cost of his answer before he spoke. "You print what you can prove." Evelyn held his gaze. That was not a promise of safety. It was something harder. Respect for the part of her that could one day threaten him. The night of the crash, she said Brooks asked who he should call. Adrian waited. "I did not say your name because I thought you were a good man. I know. I said it because I knew you would come." That was a dangerous assumption. Was I wrong? No. She reached for his hand. At the beginning, the police had called him because she was injured, frightened, and running out of choices. Now she stood beside him because the choice was hers. Not rescued, not owned, not promised an easy life. Only seen. Adrian lifted her hand and pressed his lips against her knuckles. Below them, sirens moved through the city. Trains crossed the river. Office lights disappeared 1 floor at a time. Chicago continued as though nothing had changed, but powerful men had fallen. A frightened woman had found her voice again. And a man who had built his life around control had finally allowed someone to stand beside him without belonging to him. Evelyn looked at Adrian. "Next time I need you, I would rather make the call myself." The rare smile she remembered appeared slowly. "Then I suggest you keep my number." This time, when he kissed her, there were no alarms, no bullets, and no doors closing between them.